He shall appear from a far eastern land across the sea, a young man who's yet to know his potential. His potential is a power that could either destroy him or realize his will. His courage shall determine his fate. The path he must traverse, fraught with adversity, I await whilst praying, for this destiny predetermined since ancient times. A pitch black night unfolds, with the morning star as its only light, and thus the saga begins. Before we begin, I would just like to mention that I've tried to keep this video spoiler free for those that have not played any of the Shenmue games. There will be a mixture of scenes from Shemue 1 and 2, but none from the Shemue 3 trial. I've played many video games in my time, whether it's classics like Sonic or Mario, to the much more obscure video games. But in this video I'll be looking at legendary Yu Suzuki's Shemue games series and what it means to me. Though you may not be familiar with Shemue, or perhaps you know Shemue very well, whether you're a Shemue fan or not, stay with me to hear my thoughts on Shemue 1, 2 and the soon to be released Shemue 3. The Sega Dreamcast sadly didn't last as long as it should have, despite being quite groundbreaking, such as making online gaming mainstream. In 1999, Sega released Shemue 1 for the Dreamcast, but looking at the game today it may not look anything special, but back when Shemue was released it was quite a big deal. At the time, Shemue was the most expensive video game ever made, and playing the game it becomes obvious why, because of the attention to detail that was very rarely seen in a console-based video game. And yes, the graphics were very good, and still look great even running at 4K on modern consoles or on the PC when playing the HD ports, despite the now rough looking textures and low polygon models by today's standards. Today we have such good graphics cards in our PCs that PC games can easily outperform consoles, but in the 90s it was quite the opposite. Graphics cards, or 3D accelerators they were known, were only just becoming standard. In 1999, Nvidia released their GeForce 256 graphics card, and that was the first card to contain the necessary hardware to do transformation lighting and shading for 3D games into a single chip called a graphics processing unit. So, in the 90s, and even at the time of the release of Shemue, consoles could typically better handle 3D graphics than PCs, and Shemue showed that well. It was not just the graphics, of course, that made Shemue so beloved. It was the diverse characters, the epic story, the wonderful music, the fact that you could talk to anyone and pick up and inspect many different objects. It wasn't a game that felt like it was just get key A to unlock door A. The game was about experience the same as Ryo in his daily life. Talking to his friends, learning of their own troubles or hopes and dreams, trying to progress but being ripped off by shady characters. If you wanted, you could even forget about the main story and just spend time at the arcade playing emulated Sega classics, or buying capsule toys that represented Sega's rich gaming history. Here was Ryo, determined to make his father's killer pay, yet he needed to buy a light bulb from the supermarket to continue his quest. That is the realism of the game. But let's not pretend that the Shemue games are flawless. On the original Dreamcast versions, slowdown is common and there are long loading times, which fortunately the HD ports, released in 2018 for Xbox One, PS4 and PC, greatly eliminate. Sadly, it would have been too much effort for Sega to redo the textures, but as already mentioned, the Shemue games still hold up well graphically. Another issue with the Shemue games is the poor English voice acting. Although I can't comment on the Japanese vocals since I don't understand Japanese, when playing Shemue 1 I have the Japanese vocals on and English subtitles enabled. Then there are the controls. Guiding Ryo is a bit of a challenge, especially when trying to maneuver Ryo in a tight spot or around AI characters. It's improved somewhat in the HD ports, as you can use the analog stick to move Ryo instead of the D-pad, but even so it's not the modern type of control we are used to. I must also mention the QTEs, or quick time events, which were popularised by Shemue and required you to press a button within a short amount of time to advance the game. At times they are frustrating, having to watch the same cutscene again before having another attempt at the QTE. Shemue II was released in 2001 for the Dreamcast, but only in Japan and Europe, as they are the places where the first Shemue game sold the best, so North America didn't get Shemue II on Dreamcast, but they did however get the Xbox original version in 2002, an enhanced version of Shemue II, and Europe also got the Xbox original version, but in 2003. The world of Shemue II is a lot bigger than the first Shemue, which makes fitting use of a much needed feature in which AI character will guide you to a requested destination, although somewhat unrealistic that almost every character seems willing to walk often a long distance for you. There are other improvements in Shemue II, such as being able to fast forward time, rather than having to wait around, though that takes away somewhat from the life simulation aspect of Shemue. Like with Shemue 1, in Shemue 2, you have to work and even do mundane tasks, but again that is the beauty of the game. That isn't just about clearing a level of enemies, but about living the life of Ryo. As much as I'm very fond of the first Shemue game, the second game appeals to me more, but not just for how the game was made better, but also for the setting. Here was Ryo, away from the comfort of his own hometown, and now exploring an exciting new place and meeting new people used to a very different way of life. Before we get to Shemue III, it's worth mentioning that there were several attempts at follow-up Shemue games, starting with the never-released Shenmue Online, first announced in 2004, which would have been an MMORPG based on Shemue II. New hope was given to Shemue fans when in 2010 Shemue City was released in Japan for mobile phones as a spin-off of the original Shemue game, and with the hope that it could lead to Shemue 3, but the Shemue City service was shut down after a year. After almost 2 decades since Shemue 2's release, Shemue 3 was announced in 2015 after a successful Kickstarter campaign and is set to be released on the 19th of November 2019 on PC and PS4 with no involvement from Sega other than licensing the Shemue brand. I think it's a real shame Sega didn't get involved in Shemue 3, especially after releasing the HD ports of the first 2 games, as Sega is synonymous with Shemue just as Yu Suzuki is. Shemue 3 of course is very much for the fans, having had to wait for such a long time for a continuation of Shemue 2. But I'm hoping Shemue 3 will also attract a new audience, people that are not even aware of Shemue. The Shemue series was supposed to consist of 11 chapters, so really we should have got a Shemue 3 and 4 on the Dreamcast. But that was not a reality due to Dreamcast's short life and Shemue's poor sales considering the expense of making the Shemue games. But here we are now with Shemue 3 within grasp, and though I know that the game will not be groundbreaking like the first 2 games, I'm happy, like I'm sure many others are, that we at long last have some kind of continuation of Shemue, and get that little bit closer to fighting Lundy, the killer of Ryo's father. If Shemue 3 sells well enough, there is a good chance we will get Shemue 4, so not only do we have that to look forward to, it will also be interesting to see exactly how much the story progresses in Shemue 3, considering it's not definite that we will get Shemue 4 anytime soon. I would hope that Ryo doesn't go down the path of vengeance as much as he wants that, but of course you can understand his motives, as at the start of Shemue we see Lundy kill Ryo's father in his quest to seek the Dragon Mirror. I have been playing the HD port of Shemue 1 and 2 on Xbox One, as you see in this video, and it has been wonderful playing the games again, now enhanced, even though not in the form of a remaster that so many had hoped for. I'm very excited for Shemue 3, as I know many others are, and people have got very emotional about the game, which must be quite odd to those that are not familiar with Shemue. I have purposely not shown any of the Shemue III trial in this video, and I have only watched a few minutes of someone playing it online, and it has assured me, as well as other people's reviews, that Shemue III is a Shemue game. You wouldn't want to play a Mario game that plays like a Sonic game, for example, although actually perhaps a few people that would be a dream come true. But it's very assuring that even with the better graphics and controls, even if the whole game is on a smaller scale than the first two Shemue games, Shemue 3 plays like a Shemue game, almost as if it was released on the Dreamcast. Whatever your experience is with Shemue, I would like to hear, so please let me know in the comments section. While I look forward to Shemue 3, I'll also be waiting for Shemue 4, with a hope that Ryo's story will have a happy conclusion. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Bye.
The point of the Yoshui easily stops your movement. If I were the person upon whom you sought revenge, you'd already be dead.